Hello. Great. Hello, Athens. This is me, Yifei. I'm a creative director at Unit 9. Some of you guys would know what we do. And I'm very recognizable as the Chinese guy who always wears black, because my wife tells me it's the only color that complements my hair and my eyes. So that's all I wear. So Unit 9, for any of you guys who don't know, Chris, who presented before me, we're also partners at Unit 9. So we actually have 5 different departments: films, digital, games, virtual reality, and technology. And me, myself, I mainly focus on virtual reality, technology, and witchcraft. But we also have the other parts as well, as you've seen. But today is not the time to talk about work, because work is boring. This is the project that I really want to introduce everyone to, the Pretender project. And this is the project that is sort of like a spawn from witchcraft. It's a technical device that allows a person to enter and control another person's body, quite literally. So in the form, you're possessing another person's body. But before we go into that, without spoiling too much, I'd like to talk about digital empathy. So a lot of people, when they hear digital empathy, they yawn, oh, it's that thing again. But what is empathy? So for me, actually, empathy is very much about being human. So empathy is very different from sympathy in the sense that you feel bad for someone or you try to understand something from another person's point of view. Empathy is very much in the form that you completely innately feel what the other person is feeling, more in the sense that you understand. So very much for me, I feel that being human is very much a part of being empathic to others and also other objects and even different environments. So for me, the human being is very much isolated from the world, because if you think about it, we only have very much 5 senses. I know someone may argue to differ, but let's stick with this for a second. So we only sort of peek at the world through our 5 senses, and that would be vision, hearing, touch, scent, and taste. So our brain is pretty much like a prediction mechanism that's kind of predicting what the world is around us. Because we all know dogs, for instance, have a keener sense of smell than human beings. Some animals can see infrareds. Bats, for instance, or dolphins can even sense ultrasonic sounds. So there are so many of these things around the world that's happening all around us, including like magnetic waves, etc., that we cannot naturally sense. So all the world that's around us is very much a mere projection or a prediction from our brain. So how does this relate to the digital world? Digital world is very much created around us, including any kind of technical device or sensor, in the form to expand our natural limits. Say, for instance, we have infrared cameras to help us see things that we may not be able to see. We also even create gaming worlds or virtual worlds that we are able to immerse ourselves or kind of empathize with a world that may not exist in the real realm. So what about digital empathy? So we discussed how humans empathize with the real world, but how does human beings empathize with digital worlds or digital objects? So funny enough, in the sense that now today digital objects and electronics are kind of overpowering all of our senses, overpowering all our lives, but it very much boils down back to the 5 senses, because again, the human being is isolated from the rest of the world, including digital experience and including digital objects, by our 5 senses. So we've created screens for our vision, speakers for our hearing, keyboards and mouse for physical movements, interactions. Some devices even give us a sense of smell. And rarely, occasionally, we even choose to taste our projects. So I already heard a few kind of laughter from the audience. Oh man, this is a big screen. All right, so on this side, as you can see, we have the less plausible ways of interacting with digital devices, which is taste and smell. Not too many of us are very fond of smelling or tasting digital electronics. Whereas on this side, we have the more common, which is more visual and sound. But if you look at the 5 senses that it corresponds to, on the other side, which is the less plausible, those are actually the senses that are more empathic, that allows us to feel more emotion. Whereas vision and sound, you can argue that those are the more logical sides of human sensorial interactions. So let's take a step forward in trying to understand, okay, what about the more advanced side? So I feel everyone would probably agree that, say for instance, digital screens would be amongst the more developed or a more advanced side of digital or electronic interaction with the human body. So this is a screen grab that I've taken from Google Images. And does everyone recognize this painting? Yes? Hands up if you've actually seen this painting in real life. Quite a few. Can I ask one of the lovely audience who raised their hands to help me pick out which one is the actual one in terms of color? No? Not anyone? Maybe it's that one, the bluer one, or kind of brighter one? Maybe? No? So what I'm trying to say is that for an artist, especially someone like Van Gogh, colors is an extremely important part for him or her to express their emotion. Whereas once it's translated through a layer of digital, it becomes a layer of pollution. So even though you may have seen this actual painting, there's no way for you to be able to recognize it on a digital screen. So what this becomes is just a series of icons that kind of reflect to you in that, okay, I recognize this painting, but which one exactly is it? It's not really sure. Who can actually tell me the rough scale or size of this painting? Is it pretty big, like the screen, or quite small, like the Mona Lisa? Yeah, roughly that size. So even though in real life, a lot of times we come face to face with objects created by other people to help express their emotion, we still choose to look at it through a layer of digital, as if Google Images needs another one of the iPhone photos. So I'm sure many of us probably recognize this guy. Clippy, very famous. So this guy is actually a classic example of bad digital empathy. So who finds this guy annoying? Raise your hands. Yeah? Yeah? Because why? Because it tries to help us, but it's not really helping because it doesn't know what we're trying to do. But you can't really blame this guy because it follows the rules of creating an anthropomorphic image in the sense that it has eyes. Yes, it has a body. It sometimes gestures to you, trying to be annoying, dancing around in the bottom corner of the screen. But at the same time, does it really have eyes? Can it actually see you through the camera of your computer? No. Can it touch you? Can it see your body gesture? Can it see that you're frustrated from your facial expression? No. So imagine if I place you in a box and told you to try to be helpful without being able to see anyone, hear anyone, touch anyone, or interact with anyone. You would probably be very annoying as well. But at the same time, so we all understand that we rarely interact with digital objects or inanimate objects in a very humanly way. So how many people go home and say, hey fridge, or like, high five toaster, yeah, good to see you TV, yeah. No one, right? Because everyone's laughing, I assume, maybe one or two. But how many of us has done this? When your computer doesn't work, you go, oh please, can you please work? Oh, I'm gonna do a presentation. Oh no, yeah. So we actually have a distinct and we have a natural kind of urge to be able to communicate with digital objects in a very humanly fashion, even though it's not hardwired into the way that it understands us. So I don't think this guy would actually make it any better by hugging it. So what I'm trying to say is we are only using the mechanical layer of technology. So what we have is very much like a dictionary, but human and what we need is actually literature. So having said all of this, I want to introduce a concept that's been floating around quite recently, very, very hot, called virtual reality. And a lot of people will tell you, including Chris Milk, that it is the ultimate tool for presence, because guess what? You can put people into other people's shoes. You can take people to other places. They can look around. They feel as if they are there. So Unit 9, we've been in the VR world for quite a long time, and long, I mean 2.5 years, because it's fairly new. But we've created quite a lot of virtual reality experiences, including the typical ones where, say for instance, The Wild Within. This is a virtual reality film for the Canadian Tourism Board, where you are actually able to go on you are able to choose the direction that you want to go, either go on a boat ride or go into the forest, very nice, very relaxing. Or this experience where you actually become a hawk. You become Rufus, the pigeon scarer of Wimbledon. So this is an experience that we created for Stella, the beer. And it was during the Wimbledon season, and we wanted to give people like a bird's eye view of all the courts and while listening to all the historic matches happening around Wimbledon. And this one is very interesting because you also lay on your back on a board and you have wind blowing your face and make you feel more like you're a bird. And also one interesting thing for anyone who is going to do virtual reality experiences in summer or in Athens all year round, this happened in summer. And we had to quickly fashion a device called the courtesy blanket for all the girls with skirts, because they were, yeah. So that's a tip. We also do a lot of virtual reality experience in CGI. So in this experience was for Nissan Juke, for the Juke, Nissan Juke, the car. And in this experience, you were to embody this very, very cool robotic kind of parkour person while you are flying through this sci-fi city while chasing the amazing Nissan Juke. And in reality, you kind of look very dumb because you're sliding on this board. But anyway, in the experience, you look super cool. Yeah, so this was for the Paris Motor Show. So having said that, what I really want to share is not all the projects that we've done, but it's more about some of the experiences and challenges about conveying emotion and creating empathy. And I'm going to do so through some projects from a dear colleague of ours, Heinrich Bergman. So the first project about presence. This is a project for Lexus. It's called Lexus Elevates. It's a virtual reality film about why we ride. So it's about creating the experience that you're riding on a cycle down the road. And obviously, what would you do? You would create a first-person experience by mounting a bunch of GoPros on someone's head and ask them to ride a bicycle. So we created a 360 film about how people ride bicycles. For anyone who's familiar, the way that virtual reality works is usually, if you're using especially a GoPro rig, you would have like up to 18 or in this typical frame, 4 up to 6 different GoPros shooting footage, and then it would be stitched into one continuous kind of sphere where then you can project a camera in the center that allows the user to look around the sphere. But what happens is, because of stitching, when you look down, this is what you see. Your whole head and your neck becomes replaced by a stump, because this is what happens when you stitch different camera footages together. And this by no means is empathic of you being this person. It's actually a bit uncanny and quite scary. So we had to really quickly green screen, very professionally green screen, a helmet, and key that into the image. So now when you look down, we have the lovely helmet, but it's too high res, so we blurred it out. So now again, you're not really this person, are you? Because previously you were kind of floating above this Frankenstein person that doesn't have a head, but now you're just floating above a person. So for any of you, I want to ask again, has anyone tried a virtual reality experience that's in first-person point of view, that when you look down, it's not a black hole or just nothing, that you actually have a body that feels very similar to what you would see when you really look down? No? This is the first point. Up to today, even though everyone's shouting about first-person POV, there is no single virtual reality film out there that has actually achieved first-person point of view. You're always a ghost floating somewhere. Second one about emotion. So this, again, is a project we did for Stella, and this is for water poverty. And this is what we sent a whole team to Honduras to be able to show. So Stella works with water.org, and they help third world countries kind of get access to clean water. So we sent a whole team to Honduras, and it was really beautiful. The whole film was very emotional. All the people that you see in the film are actually locals. None of them are actors. We shot a ton of beautiful footage in terms of their lives, how water has changed the way that they work, they live, they study. So we thought we would come up with a cool idea of splitting the screen into two sides. So one side would be before water, so how their lives were before they had water. And if you look to the right, half 180 degree, you would see how water has changed their life. So I'm going to show you the film first.
Around the world, women spend millions of hours a day collecting the water they need for their families. Together, we can give them this time back.
Guillermina Hernandez Hernandez. I am 35 years old.
A side thing here, as everyone saw in the beginning idea, our previous idea when we pitched it was before water the land was dry, it was nothing, it was of death. And after water everything's green, everything's nice. But when we actually went to shoot, it was during rain season, so everything was green. And you'll find that before they had water, because they had to physically carry water, they were much more in nature. They had to go through this tropical rainforest, etc. But after they had water, they just stuck in the home and watched TV and eat potato chips.
Used to it. We used to spill a lot of water on the way. But
So as you can see, actually without water it's a lot greener
Clean it up, shower,
than
clean, cook.
after they had water. But the main point wasn't that. It was because they usually had to spend up to 8 hours of time to carry the water. But after water flowed into the home, it freed them up to be able to study, to socialize, and to enjoy life.
We're all much healthier too. Before we would often get sick and malnourished, especially the kids. You couldn't get a flower to grow. But now we grow all sorts of things like ginger, yamen, yucca, oranges and coconuts. We even make extra food, cakes, enchiladas, that type of thing. Now we don't have to collect water. We can go and sell them in a nearby town. Having water has created these opportunities for me and my family. Life is so much better for all of us.
We can be the generation remembered for ending the global water crisis. For every limited edition Stella Artois challenge.
Okay, yeah. So as you can see, this is quite an emotional film. So the whole idea was we wanted to bring you there. We wanted you to experience what the lives were before and after water. But actually, if you look at it, there are no close-ups, no depth of field. So in terms of traditional film language, we use close-ups and we use depth of field and focus to be able to address people to the things that we want them to look at, to add the kind of sense of tension or to add emotion. Whereas with VR, there is no depth of field. Everything is flat. So the experience that you actually have in this, from our point of view, is very much you're just standing in the corner and watching everything happen around you. There's nothing that takes preeminence, say for instance someone that's the main character or something that's happening that you need to look at. You're very, very, very passive. The second point is there's no behind the camera. So again, with traditional filming, this is what you see in the camera. Leonardo DiCaprio looking very tense. Whereas this is actually what happens. So behind the camera, there is the director, there's the DOPs, there's the sound guy, sometimes the lighting guy, everyone is behind the camera. But with virtual reality, there is no behind the camera. So what happens is, once our camera guy sets up the camera, he needs to run off and hide behind that bush over there. Our whole team, the director, DOP, everyone is behind that bush. Yeah? Because the camera is shooting in all directions. So if you're in the shot, you're in the shot. And then once the camera has been set up, the actors arrive. And they do their thing. So which means that there's no way that you can direct the camera. There's no way you can focus on the things that you think are more important. There's no way you can react. So there's a really interesting quote here. Shooting video is like hunting. You point and you shoot. Shooting VR is kind of like setting bear traps. You set it up, run away, and hope that you catch something. And also, as you saw, because the footage needs to be stitched, a lot of times you don't even know what the 360 content looks like until you've actually done the stitching. So exploring digital empathy. Having gone all this full circle, we talked about the 5 senses, we talked about virtual reality, we talked about how potentially virtual reality, there's a lot of problems in it that doesn't really help us with immersion. So how do we explore digital empathy? So what is digital empathy? For myself, it's very much almost like a soul that we don't know. It's that soul in the computer that you hope when you pet it, it knows, yes, I must perform now. and do something that it's supposed to do. So how do we explore the soul? It's about creating emotional stories. So coming back to the idea of the Pretender project. So in the beginning I mentioned this is a project that started off from the idea of witchcraft. I don't personally practice witchcraft myself because I'm not cool enough. And also I don't think there are any witches in China. What I wanted to do is, because witchcraft has been around for so long, and even in the form of movies, in the form of books, in the form of just people talking about it, it always seems to trigger a very strong emotion. So I wanted to take the most kind of provocative element of witchcraft, which is possession, and embody that using a digital project. So at Unit 9, this is one of the current things that we're talking about, the idea of emotions alchemy. The idea of using technology and innovation to be able to explore and trigger human emotions and study the relationship between the human emotion and digital emotion. And the reason why we call it alchemy is because, very much like the time of alchemy, we have no idea what we're doing. So in a nutshell, what the Pretender does is it allows one person to literally enter and control another person's body. So it's a two-part system. The first part is a virtual reality system. As you can see, for the avatar, he's wearing wide-angle lenses, which is giving a live feed to the controller. So this merely establishes a POV point of view from the avatar. But at the same time, using muscle stimulation, the controller is able to use motion tracking to directly influence and control the avatar's body. And this is using muscle stimulation and a bit of witchcraft. So this is a video of one of the early testings that we did. So in the video, you can recognize that guy who wears black. He is wearing a very cool glove that is controlling this person's hand. And I assure you that he is not from Unit 9, I've never met him before. And using that device, I'm able to completely control the other person's hand. And this is not him just reacting to a signal. As you can see later on that I try with different people's body, because of skin conductivity, the response is different. So since then, this project has been awarded a government grant to be able to take this into further development. And right now we have an upper body suit that's able to control the full upper body of another person. So imagine the human body as a puppet, your bones being the structure and your muscle being the strings. So if you control the strings of a puppet, therefore you control the whole of the puppet itself. So going back to this chart of the different senses, Pretender is only sitting at the middle. So we can all agree that within virtual reality, we have headsets, head-mounted displays that deal with vision. We have headphones that deal with sound. Pretender is only a mere kind of output device for motion. And then we have yet a lot of other things to explore within this digital realm. And what I mean by motion output device is, if you look at any kind of digital device, a camera is a visual input device, whereas a screen is a visual output device. Same thing with a microphone and a speaker. The majority of the physical kind of contraptions or electronics, digital devices that we have created are all input devices, whereas Pretender is arguably the first device, digital device, that allows motion to be output directly back onto a human body. So what is digital empathy? We believe that in the age, the creativity in the age of AI, the whole idea of empathy and digital empathy is about humanizing digital. And that one day, potentially, we will be able to create stuff like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yifei. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go and have a seat. A couple of questions for you from Twitter. Fantastic. Yeah, a lot to take in, to say the least. So Adapuda wonders where and what design and designers will be in 5 or 10 years from now.
Okay.
That's a difficult question.
This is a very interesting question. They may be puppeteered by me, potentially. But there was a really interesting topic in Cannes this year. One of the panelists posed the question, will an algorithm one day win a Cannes? And so the whole panelist was consist of quite a few of AI experts. And one of them kind of foretold or kind of, see that in the future, in 2027, virtual personal assistants will be able to make conscious decisions for us to buy FMCG. Say, for instance, we would never need to buy toilet paper, toothpaste, groceries. A machine would be able to do all that for us.
Right.
And when that time comes, and that's not very far, that's only 11 years from now, there will be algorithms or human beings creating advertisement to appeal to algorithms who are making conscious purchase decisions.
Okay.
So for me, I believe in 5 or 6 years' time, creatives and people within the industry would be removed from the chores of being able to physically having to make or create things, whereas we would be directing machines to do the heavy lifting and the calculations for us.
Okay. What's the advantages and disadvantages of that then?
Say, for instance, if you're a solo creative working by yourself, you would need to create the pitch deck, you need to do all the designs, you need to do all the soldering, the wiring, everything. Whereas if you work with a team, you would have different people specialize in different aspects, and you can focus on the pure aspects of creativity.
Yeah.
Whereas in the future, potentially, anyone can become a one-man team with the help of artificial intelligence. So in the sense that everyone can retreat from the more kind of mundane tasks of skill-based labor and retreat back to what's more human in terms of more emotional and more creative thinking.
Yeah. Okay. The other one is actually quite a similar question. I think it's what are the potential applications of the Pretender project? And I guess that goes back to what you've just said. Really, it's a similar thing.
So with Pretender project, as people have seen on the video, the resolution or the kind of accuracy of the muscle triggering is not very advanced as of this moment. So right now it's very much used in kind of like a haptic feedback method for virtual experiences. Say, for instance, in virtual reality, if there was a table in front of us, we would not be able to touch it because it's not there. You can see it, but your hand would just go through it. Whereas using the Pretender project, you're able to actually lock people's muscles. So when they encounter virtual solid objects, you can create the sensation that it has a presence or it has a volume within the virtual space.
Fantastic.
Once the resolution increases, it would be used for training. So imagine, any kind of professional athlete or dancer would be able to record their body movements and sell it in an app. And you would be able to download Tiger Woods' golf swing to play it on your body.
Yeah.
And in terms of further...
Almost.
Sorry?
In an instant become Tiger Woods.
No. You would be able to learn the muscle memory, but obviously your body build is different from Tiger Woods. But you would be able to learn the right muscles to perform the motion. And eventually we've actually tried this with people with disability, with MND, motor neuron disability. And this device actually bypasses the motor neuron connection between the muscle and the brain. Wow. So with people who still have healthy muscles, but the motor neuron is disconnected or damaged, this device is still able to help them activate their normal muscle movement.
Amazing tool. Thank you very much, Yifei. Thank you.